Hello everyone, and welcome to this video where we're going to talk about one of my favorite creations I've ever made, the MV Cochrane. Now, previously I've made videos showing the features and all that good stuff, but in this video I really want to talk about the technical side of things and how it relates to one of my favorite book series, the Oregon Files. Now, a lot of you have been commenting throughout the years about the popularity of the Oregon ship, the spy ship kind of theme, and how that all relates. And I did come out and explicitly say that, yes, the MV Cochrane is based on the MV Oregon from the Oregon Files, but I just want to talk about what I really love about that. So, a lot of you know, hopefully, about the book series. If you don't, I highly recommend you check it out and take a look. But in essence, what you have in this book is a ship that is camouflaged. It's camouflaged to look like a tramp steamer, a really old 1950s or 60s kind of steamer that would transport goods kind of all over the place. No set schedule, no set itinerary, just as and when cargo comes, it moves around. That's kind of the basis of this ship, of the MV Oregon. And what you get is a crew that kind of lives on board. And on the surface level, it just looks like a decrepit old boat. And it's described in a couple different ways in the books. I've actually read all of them, taken notes, done some of my own renderings of what I imagine it looks like, and my boat, the MV Cochrane, does not necessarily look like, shape-wise at least, the MV Oregon. The MV Oregon has, I believe, the superstructure more or less in the middle with a larger front on the aft than the stern. I've kind of switched it around. My stern area is larger, but there still is some storage area and capacity on the aft deck. So I've done that. I have tried as much as possible to take my kind of interpretation of the MV Oregon and put it into this. Obviously, there's limitations in size, and even this scope of work for the project for the MV Cochrane, it was substantial. And I mean, I've mentioned this before, it's at some points given me actual nightmares where I would wake up or not be able to go to bed because I'm thinking about how much of an overwhelming task I've underwent. But just the amount of pivots, the amount of moving parts, the mechanics behind the MV Cochrane, in my opinion, is what makes it truly amazing. I wanted to make it look rusty and decrepit, just like in the novel. So in the novel, they talk about there being kind of junk strewn about on the deck. There's missing railing, it's patched up with chains. The windows are broken and covered with plywood in the superstructure. It just, the image of nasty and decrepit, and that's kind of what I continued on throughout the whole boat. That is kind of where I had this idea to leave just nasty things strewn about, lights flickering. That's directly from the novel. It's supposed to not be inviting at all inside the camouflaged kind of fake areas of the vessel. I put on the little pool on the stern there, and the reason for that is more so as a homage to how the MV Oregon has, I believe, a skateboarding ramp for some of the crew members to kind of go and spend some leisure time. So I didn't want to put a skateboarding ramp, but I thought it was kind of funny and neat to put a little inflatable boat. And the thing moves so slow, maybe the pool wouldn't fly away, but maybe it would, and it's kind of totally unrealistic, but whatever. It just adds a little bit of pop of color and a kind of fun. So that is kind of these areas that I'm talking about that are camouflaged to just look like they have garbage and barrels and random stuff. Now, one thing I really wanted to do that I just could not have implemented was to have the popping machine guns coming out of the barrels. In the Oregon, there's barrels strategically planted around the vessel, and when they push a button, the machine gun pops out of the barrel and can be controlled from the superstructure from the command center, pardon me. Now, I couldn't fit it into a normal small size barrel, and I didn't want to have oversized barrels. So I just decided against adding extra physics bodies and opted instead for the massive guns on the popping open command center. Now, in the vessel, in the book, they actually have the command center hidden underneath the superstructure, and all it does is have a bank of computer monitors and displays. But personally, I love seeing the ocean. I love having windows, so I really did want to have kind of these walls that open up. Not as good for kind of concealment. Of course, if you shoot at it, it opens up, so definitely it's not as strong as having just your command center buried inside the hull. But I like the visual of it popping up with the guns, with everything, and then you get a nice, beautiful panorama of the ocean as you go. So that is something I kind of took an executive decision, and my own interpretation of the Oregon instead had this. Also, because in the book, the displays are huge, whereas in the game we're kind of limited to, I believe it's a 5x3 or whatever. So I didn't want to kind of make these displays a bunch of displays with different things. I wanted to actually see the ocean. However, you still could close the panels, and then it acts pretty much as what you have with the Oregon. So that is one of the hidden areas. Then I wanted a bunch of hidden passages. In the novel, they talk about kind of a janitor's closet being the main entrance, and they move, I think, a sink. So I did actually do that in my own interpretation, but rather than being in a closet, it's kind of the hand wash station on the deck, and you press the button and then the main door pops open and you can walk on in. One thing that was a very limiting factor was this bug with the moon pool. So with the moon pool being just kind of the hatch as it previously was in the very first interpretation, you could actually see it on the images. The submarine did not function properly. It actually bugged out and it showed as if it was full of water even though it wasn't. So I went ahead and deleted that and kind of made the moon pool just open. Then of course the update came out giving us the ability to have proper moon pools. So I've not gone ahead and updated it with this. However, I think it is quite functional and good as it is, and there still may be that limitation of the submarine when it spawns inside a closed space, how exactly it interacts. So I'm not too keen on playing with that. And also, this thing took so long, so many hours to make. I don't really make major changes unless it's a functionality change. So keep that in mind as well. Anyway, moving on to the other areas. So the bridge, the super center, the main kind of nerve center of the ship is the key there. But of course, we have the living quarters. Now, this is directly taken from the book, The Oregon Files, where the two sort of bedrooms that I have are styled in interesting ways. Now, in the novel, they have the crew members choosing how they want to decorate their rooms. They get a budget and allowance, and they go ahead and make it any style they want. For a large majority of the book, I believe the main character's room is sort of like Casablanca themed. So that's kind of what I went for. I went for this sort of style with the Roman arches and kind of a sky feeling. Whereas the other one was a very modern loft style with, these hot tubs and kind of stairs and whatnot. So each room modeled differently. Obviously, in the Oregon Files, they have a bunch of staterooms with a bunch of different styles, but my version is just kind of abbreviated to not have that not be that large. I wanted to optimize it as well to be functional, and even still, it's quite heavy on the computer power. Anyway, those there. Then we have the other areas of the ship. I just kind of took and made it as luxurious as possible for the galley and kind of the crew area. Then we move on. We have the gun range, which is extracted from the novels as well. The swimming pool, which kind of is a ballast tank inside the in the book. It uses one of the ballast tanks, whereas here it takes water from the ballast tank, so similar enough, not quite the ballast tank itself. And then we have other areas too. Now in the books, we have a helipad which kind of pops up, so the helicopter comes out of some sort of storage area, and I copied that as well from that. However, I couldn't make it come out of the hull itself, so rather than that, I make it pop out of the actual containers, which works quite nicely. It adds a little touch of decor on the deck and makes it look a little functional there. And finishing off on the rear of the ship, we have the rib launch. Now, they have rib launch in the Oregon on the side of the vessel, but just again, judging from the size that I was working with, the limitations, I went ahead and made it on the rear. That way when it floods, it doesn't sink the ship or tilt it off to one side. But overall, I think I captured the essence of the Oregon while still taking my own kind of artistic approach to how I interpreted it. Overall, I love this creation. I think it's one of the best things I've ever made, and I don't know if it can ever be topped truly. But what I've done is taken all this thought and energy and kind of made it into this. So I love how it turned out. Are there things that I wish I could have done differently, better, now that I have more skills? Well, that's a good one. I think the systems that I have are about as advanced as I want them to be. It's pretty much matching any one of my advanced vessels. But that said, maybe I would have preferred, well, one of the thoughts I had was to have the vehicle come out of the containers and have the helicopter come out of that forward kind of compartment. But even in retrospect, I do like the helicopter coming out of the container, especially the air freight decal on the side or air attack or whatnot. So it really kind of just adds to the lore of the thing. Interior wise, I love everything I've done. I don't really think that I would have done anything different given the chance. Even inside the main kind of bridge area, the hidden bridge, the one that's supposed to be based on, I believe it was either Star Wars or Star Trek. I'm sorry, I'm not a fan of either personally, but I know that in the book it's based on one of the command centers on the spaceships. So I do think it all came together quite nicely. And the ship actually had a lot of R&D on my end, where I developed a lot of new technology that I then went ahead and put into my other ships. And of course the rocket engines, the speed, all that kind of fun stuff, the fun little bit of lore that I've gotten associated with it. So I really don't see what I could have done differently. I really have no interest in making it larger, using the oil platform as a foundation and making something big. Even this was about as large and draining as I personally would want to have seen. So I am quite happy with it. I want people to love it, enjoy it, use it. I didn't want to make it too heavy on the graphics, but it unfortunately is, just because all of the bodies and pivots and whatnot. So if I had to change one thing, I'd try to optimize it in terms of the lag. But I really did do my best, and I think it pretty much turned out pretty good, if I have to say so myself. A nice little detail also, I did want to put the GTC, I believe I called it the AMOG, but the amphibious version is what I wanted to put on the ship, so it could be used as a kind of ship and vehicle, but the garage just did not have the space, and I did not want to make a large vehicle that would make the ship front heavy and whatnot. So I went ahead and used the kind of SAP-based Land Rover that I developed, which is just a very simple platform. I think I even removed the doors and hood and things just to prevent the amount of bodies. I wanted to be as optimized as possible for the vehicle, while still allowing people to deploy a land-based vehicle and use it there. And actually, I think to date, it still remains one of the only ships that actually made that start off with its own deck-based land vehicle. I do have plans to make other ones, but until now, I think it's the only one that starts off with a land-based vehicle. Anyway, that Land Rover, I wanted to make it kind of like the Mercedes from the novels, and make it look rusted and falling apart and decrepit just like in the novels, and I think it turned out quite nicely for that purpose as well. And I even managed to give it an assault weapon. It has machine guns mounted underneath, so just a fun little touch. Overall, this creation is intended for fun. It is intended for a lot of interactiveness, and various different uses that you may come across. That's kind of the intention. Just give it a huge assortment of things that you can do on there. So there you have it, the MV Cochrane. Make sure you check it out if you haven't already. Stay tuned for other videos, stay tuned for other creations, and as always, happy Stormworksing, everyone.